What were you told to keep secret about a company you worked for, but you don't work there anymore, so frick those guys. Soy sauce. The secret ingredient in Jimmy John's tuna salad is soy sauce. I was at one of the larger universities in the Midwest, working on my doctorate. One day, my laptop was stolen from my office. Filed a police report, assumed it was a lost cause, but only a limited number of people have access to that office, so it bothered me. I had my suspicions about an individual, but no proof. Explanation from building superintendent. Homeless man brought ladder in and climbed over ceiling boards at night. Apparently this had happened before, and the guy was still floating around somehow. Also curiously, my office mate had had some checks stolen and attempted to cash a few weeks prior, so I had reason to believe this was wrong and something else was going on. Things don't just walk away from locked offices. Week later, I'm on the pot late at night and walk out to find my laptop and half a dozen other valuables, including a checkbook, staring at me across the hall. In the open janitor's closet, he was down the hall cleaning another office. So I grab it all, run back to my office, and call campus police. They show up, take report, collect stolen items, call it a day. Next day, Super calls me into office and tells me that I was wrong and found that stuff in the hallway, and that I need to amend my report, clearly implying that my enrollment was at stake. What he doesn't know is that I had already completed my grad requirements and there was no way in heck they could legally pull them. I made copies of everything, all electronic and paper, lots of trail to cover my butt. I'd already had tons of problems getting what I need, and I wasn't going to let them win. So I went back to the campus police and told them what happened. Turns out the janitorial staff shouldn't have even been there at the time I found those things. They were scheduled for much later at night. A week later the campus cops came back and said they had to drop the case because it had been resolved. At this point I don't trust anyone, so I call the real cops. They take a report and can't believe what they're hearing. Detective says protecting students in a rough town is a top priority and thanks me for this information. A couple of months later, newspaper article detailing how school had been hiring without any background check at all. Hiring paying under the table, including ex-cons and people with active arrest warrants. They had even been using the place to distribute drugs. Whole janitorial grounds department gets turned over within days. Big public apology. I still got my doctorate. TL. DR. Everybody got fired because I would not go quietly into the night. TL. DR. Everybody got fired because I would not go quietly into the night. I will not vanish without a fight. I worked in a coffee shop where they would buy individually packaged muffins in bulk, like the kind you see in convenience stores. They would then have us remove them from their packaging and wrap them in saran wrap, and sell them as homemade for over twice the price as what they sold literally next door at the gas station. I always enjoyed the compliments I got for my baking skills. Same thing is happening at farmers markets. Some people buy in bulk the cheap stuff, unwrap it and market as farm to table type balls. Doku pad. Giant desk-sized screen used for electronically signing paperwork in car dealerships. Costs about $1/20 than what it's sold for. Barely works, and the company has no interest in improving it. I worked for a chicken restaurant. At one point we were so infested with cockroaches it was normal to see about 20 a day. We, the management and supervisor staff, begged the manager to shut down the store to clean. Instead we never ever stopped and were required to come in on the weekends to clean around everything. We also were required to call cockroaches friends so we wouldn't let the customer know that we were infested. On more than one occasion we would feel them crawling on us and we were told we weren't allowed to react or we would be written up. Thankfully we got shut down by the health department and corporate took over the store and turned it around. I started working as a casual in a seafood department of a supermarket franchise a while ago. After 2 months they moved me to full-time. After that I was employee of the month and assistant manager. The company asked if I could relocate to another store to run their shop as manager. I was stoked. Manager at 18? Felt good, man. I was there for 8 months. 13-hour days 6 days a week. I was getting paid $450 a week. I thought something was wrong about that and approached my manager. He said because I am young and still on my full-time probation period I was earning less, but once probation was over it'd be on a higher pay grade. Well, probation rolls passed and my pay hadn't gone up. The union came in one day and were chatting to all the staff about the job. I asked him about my pay grade and what I was earning, and his jaw literally dropped. He pulled out his folder and showed me what I was supposed to be earning, which was over double. He backed me up when I approached head office about it, and despite them trying to pull over everything in the book to avoid back paying me, I ended up walking out of that meeting with something like $7,000 plus a penalty. The company went from 15 major stores to 2 in the space of 3 years. After reading all the terrible stories, it's so great to hear one justice. Cheers. I worked at a gas station auto shop and I was told to dump used motor oil in the gravel behind the building because the storage tanks were full. It's a pretty open secret, but Walmart constantly works part-timers 40 hours a week so that they don't have to give them the benefits of full-time employees. I still work here, but still, frick Walmart. I worked at CVS and we had a guy go back to the pharmacy, reach over the counter and grab a tray full of filled prescription papers and ran out the emergency exit. These papers included private information on dozens of our customers, names, numbers, addresses, meds they are on, etc. There was virtually no reason for that information to be so easily accessible or out in the open, even behind the counter. Some tech really screwed up, but the kicker was my store manager who told everyone not to tell anyone or report it because it wasn't that big of a deal. All I could think about were all of my regular customers that had come in that day. Called HR that night and reported him. Turns out, it was a big deal. Full on investigation, big deal. Every single one of our customers had to be called and informed of a breach because there was no way to know whose prescriptions were in that tray and whose weren't. We lost a lot of clients. Dollar General here. I was written up for not working off the clock. My manager's boss even knew I got wrote up for that crap and said nothing. I still have copies of emails from our messed up district manager directing us to sell through all our pre-orders of GTA 4 instead of holding them for the customers that reserved them because he got a commission on total numbers sold. Game in the UK did this too. I quit as a result, after a whole 2 days, having to watch my co-workers lie to the faces of people who had prepaid in full for their reservations, after having purposefully sold them all the night before at the midnight opening to people with no reservations. When I worked at a gas station while I was in high school, whenever the owner would call us to raise the price, we'd fill up our cars first. That's fine by me. Employee perks. I used to work at Tim Hortons. This isn't exactly a trade secret, but get a blueberry tea bag and steep it in white hot chocolate. I never tried it myself, but it's apparently delicious. Wholesome secret. At a movie theater where I used to work, at the end of the night, we would collect all the unsold popcorn and stuff it into these enormous yellow trash bags. The next morning, yesterday's popcorn was the first to go in the warmer. My boss said that popcorn was fine to reheat and serve for up to a week. We never dated the bags, though. Bags that we were not allowed to throw away. We reused them all the time, so there was literally no way to know how old the popcorn was. Not as horrifying as some stuff here, but I thought it was kinda gross. I worked at this awful freaking pet store that sold dogs. We all knew the prices of all the dogs by heart, but if someone asked we had to pretend not to know. Bring the dog out to them to play with, even if they specifically ask you not to, so they get attached. Meanwhile I'm in the back with my thumb up my butt pretending to look up the price. Then when they're all nice and bonded with the dog I'd have to come out to tell them that instead of the $300-ish they were expecting, it would be more like $2,500. Cue tears. Lots of freaking tears. There was all this complete bulls we had to tell them to justify the price, including that the dogs were registered. Well, I had a customer come back absolutely freaking furious that the dog wasn't actually registered. Turns out what management meant, but didn't ever say to us, was that the dogs were registerable. That's just one example of a whole lot of crap I put up with there. I'm a pretty honest person, as guilt really gets to me more than normal I think, and all that intense lying through my teeth to good people made me extremely depressed and I quit after only 3 months. Went to an Aveda beauty school. Every year Aveda does a big recycling cap program. Since most plastic caps cannot be recycled, we collected caps for a month, and our clients were really excited to be helping the environment. After the promo was done, the instructors made us grab 3-4 garbage bags of caps each, and we threw them in the dumpster of the building next door. We didn't even use our own trash, probably because Aveda can't take away their franchising rights if they find any infractions. Also, Aveda is owned by Estee Lauder, so there is literally nothing natural about them, and they test on animals. And our clients were really excited to be helping the environment. There's some disheartening stuff on this thread, but for some reason this line made me feel extremely sad. Maybe it's the purity and innocence of someone being over the moon about their good deed for the day and actually wanting to help the environment only to be made the fool. Worked in the kitchen at a Wetherspoons pub chain in UK. If anything went out of date, we simply changed the date on it so it now says it goes out of date tomorrow instead. If something fresh didn't sell well but we already had lots of it prepared, this would happen with steaks and fish mostly. The dates would get repeatedly changed until it went brown stank, and then it would get put on special. Managers' bonuses were, in part, based on wastage. Lower wastage equals higher bonus. Also, we got pretty much everything pre-portioned, frozen, and so at least part if not all of your meal will be microwaved. In general, the later you come in, the more kitchen equipment we have turned off and cleaned, so more of it goes in the mics. Send back your food because it's cold? That's going in the microwave. That job seriously broadened my mind to what exactly you can cook using microwaves alone. We also didn't get breaks. They would even tailor shift lengths so that you would get the shortest legal length breaks that we would get shouted at for taking anyway. For example, a 5-hour shift gives you a 15 minutes break, but a 4:45 shift gives you no break. Guess which one they give you? I managed a food joint at a Six Flags when I was 16. But a 16-year running a food establishment is not even the worst part. We literally watered down the nacho cheese about 50/50. I grilled chicken for 10 hours a day on the same grill without time to clean it, so by the end of the day there was a 1/4 inch of gunk built up. I had new crew members every day who had never worked there before. My managers would take their breaks when we needed to close, but we couldn't leave until they checked our work. So we would just sit for a good 30 minutes before we could go home. I ended up getting fired because I accidentally bumped a hidden security camera while cleaning in the back room. Gunk seasoning. Worked at a mid-sized ad agency, 200 employees. That was and probably still is a house of cards. Basically, the agency was like in Mad Men, where they had one large client essentially funding the whole company. If I were to guess, I'd think probably about 95% of the revenue came from one client. In this agency's case, the client was a US government agency, and for months our project manager would tell us to bill all of our hours to that client no matter what we were working on, especially if we had nothing to work on at all. It wasn't a secret either, it was pretty much a running joke to just bill everything to that client. It felt really shady, but I don't know that anything was necessarily illegal or in violation of the contract. From what I understood, there was basically a huge pile of money allotted for years at a time, and the ad agency needed to bill for it or just not receive it. If we ran low on billed hours near the end of a contract, there would just be a rush to catch it all up. I've heard that most large government contracts work this way, but I have a feeling if the client knew what was going on, the contract negotiations would probably go a bit different the next time. This is way more light-hearted than most, but here it goes. I used to work at a fast casual burger place with a secret recipe barbecue sauce. The secret ingredient was root beer syrup. I worked at a Chinese restaurant and the secret ingredient in the orange chicken was, wait for it, tang. I have an experiment for you. Take a thin stack of regular index cards and go to your local Walmart. Go to the fresh chicken section. The long clear plastic strip at the front of the shelf can be lifted up out of the black shelf. Lift it up. Take your index cards and place it where the plastic was. Now run it, without lifting it up, to the end of the shelf. If half-rotten chicken guts don't fall out of that shelf, then you are at a cleaner Walmart than I've ever been in. Odds are you'll be able to see and smell them caked all over the bottom of the plastic thing as soon as you pull it out of the shelf. When I worked at Walmart, I always waited until the place was practically devoid of customers before I pulled those shelves apart to clean them. Ruby Falls is fake. Their waterfall is pumped in. It's artificial. The formations are paint and plastic and styrofoam or occasionally purchases from other caves halfway across the country. They lie about the height of the falls, like not a little exaggeration. They claim it's almost twice as high as it is. Most of the stories your tour guides tell you are made up. Unless they have grey hair, their funny quips about past tours are mostly BS. The employees are not told any of this and have to piece it together on their own. A lot of management legitimately doesn't know. The tour guides know and don't care. The ones that do care quit. They threaten to sue employees who ever reveal any of this, even to fellow employees. Someone should throw a dye bomb in the water to see if it recirculates back up through the waterfall. The first thing you do every day at PetSmart is dump the dead reptiles into the trash. We treated them as well as we could once they were in the store, given our fairly minimal resources, but they're mistreated in transit and often die within a day of arriving at the store. We once reordered a chameleon 3 times because they kept dying. Everyone knew they were too delicate to transport, but head office wanted a chameleon in the store. Most employees aren't aware of this, since management tries to sweep it under the rug. But I was the morning custodian. The birds are also neurotic as heck due to sheer mind-numbing boredom, and the rodents bite because they're unsocialized. Elderly hamsters get put in the back room, where they'll never be purchased, because they make customers sad. At least in my experience, the employees genuinely try to take care of the animals, but it's just not a good environment for them. The cats are okay, though, since they're not actually sold by PetSmart. The company just lends display space to rescue groups and shelters. They are mostly pretty happy and well cared for. Current PetSmart employee: the amount of quiet, dead fish we have to throw out by the end of a single day is ridiculous. I don't know how it isn't alarming to customers, because we're told to do it right in front of them. Also, I don't understand why it isn't allowed to socialize the animals. Nobody wants a hamster or any pet that is going to bite. At a certain chicken establishment, we had deep fryers that you put chicken into, lock them up, waited on the machine's timer and pulled them out. It was 3 minutes and 30 seconds long. In rushes when we were low on chicken, they made us open the machines up earlier before they were fully cooked by sometimes a full minute. I didn't work there that long. I love my chicken medium rare. Most dairy coolers and stores are riddled with mold. I don't like this thread anymore. You've been visited by the luckiest pig in the world. Comment lucky piggy below to get some of his luck. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.